Hello everyone, we'll be doing a video on proposed country unions or proposed state mergers that, well, as the name suggests, they were proposed but they never managed to occur or they failed to be implemented. And the first one we'll start with will be the United States of Latin Africa. It, it was a plan proposed by Bartolomé Boganda, who proposed a union of Romance language speaking African countries to join up together, most of them being, of course, in Central Africa. Of course, this plan was cut short by Boganda's death in a plane crash just 2 years later, in 1959. He viewed it to be as a counterweight to the powerful British influenced Southern Bloc, which was South Africa and the former nation of Rhodesia. The population of the United States of Latin Africa would be about 194 million people, which would make it the eighth largest population in the world, behind Nigeria but above Bangladesh, which is not that large actually for the landmass it takes up, compared to its neighbor, which would be Nigeria, which has a lot more population than it, while being basically four times smaller than it. But okay, the capital, uh, Boganda, he then, because of the plan getting cut short, he didn't say any so which nation would have the capital in it, or what would the capital be. So that we're unsure of. But the biggest city would be in the DRC, Kinshasa, with 17 million people living in there. And its flag is still the same as the Central African Republic, which basically became, you could say, the successor state after the United States of Latin Africa failed. So, yeah, that's pretty cool at least. But well, this did not manage to happen, and if it did, it would probably not last too long due to how diverse it is. So now, okay, moving on to the next nation that was proposed to be formed. This one is the Union of Bulgaria and Romania. This was during the 19th to the late 19th to early 20th century. The idea of federation in the Balkans was very popular due to these nations managing to gain independence from the Austrians and the Ottomans. These newly born nations wanted to join up together and become, well, stronger per se, just so they could defend themselves. And one of these proposals was the Union of Bulgaria and Romania, where both nations want to join together to, well, have more leverage in the geopolitical situation they were having there. And also another reason for this union was due to the close cultural ties both nations had. Even since the 7th century, both Romanians and Bulgarians were under the same empire, the First Bulgarian Empire. And then later on, under the Byzantines, and after that, under the Ottomans. And of course, later on, they both managed to get their independence later. So both people groups had close cultural ties and reasons for such a union to be formed. But of course, has it never really happened, and the popularity of union of or federation in the Balkans became less and less popular over time after major conflicts in Europe and the great powers not wishing for these nations to join up together, like for example the Soviet Union or just or the Western powers. So at the end of the day, both did not manage to join up together, and it especially became way less popular after the breakup or the violent breakup of Yugoslavia, which basically diminished any sort of united Balkan nation. And well, both nations nowadays they're technically okay, not in a union or anything like that, but they're both under the EU, so they are pretty much very close together still to this day. Just not in a one state type of deal. But well, moving on to the next nation. This one is Antilean Confederation, a nation state proposed by Ramon Emeterio Betances, where Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico would join up as one nation in the Caribbean. Some other ideas support the inclusion of Haiti and, weirdly enough, Colombia into this confederation. Of course, due to some difficulties, such as the Spanish American War and other such things, this idea did not come to fruition, as many are similar to most of the other ones in this list. But the main idea of this confederation was to end the European colonialism in the Americas, or at least in the Caribbean. Its largest city would be Santo Domingo, and of course its official language would be Spanish. And probably French if Haiti would have been added in there. But, well, we don't know how this nation would work or how it would look like. I would assume it's a republic. But it is what it is. It did not manage to form. Now, moving on to the next nation, would this one is the Federation of the Andes, a nation proposed by the great liberator in South America, Simón Bolívar. He his original plan was to unite all newly independent Spanish colonies into one country, but that wasn't feasible. So instead, he changed his plan on just uniting the countries he already had liberated, which would be Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Panama. And, well, first of all, the Congress of Panama were all the leaders of these newly formed nations, which would be Simón Bolívar ruling Granada and Colombia, and the leaders of Peru and Bolivia. They all went together to meet up and, well, try to see if they could negotiate such proposal. But, well, it did not happen. And, anyways, Gran Colombia, Simón Bolívar's, well, first proposed nation, you could say, his first grand ambition, collapsed 11 years later. Thus, the Federation of the Andes did not manage to occur. And also due to the fact that Peru was afraid of not being an equal in this union, and Bolivia was in a very unstable condition at the time. Now, moving on to the next country or proposed country union. This one is the Balkan Socialist Federation, and there's quite a few of them, if I'm gonna be honest, of these proposals. But the one I will be mentioning will be the one proposed by both communist leaders Joseph Broz Tito and Georgy Dimitrov. who worked on a project to merge their two countries in a Balkan Federative Republic. Both Yugoslavia and Bulgaria were getting closer ties together. They signed several agreements, and both have adapted their geopolitical interests and their common goals. But then it became problematic in June 1948 after the Tito-Stalin split, where Bulgaria was forced to take a stance against Yugoslavia. This hurts the idea of the unification of the two. But at the end of the day, it it didn't change much. It would have been interesting to see the two nations merge. I'm not 100% sure what would be the consequences of these actions and how that would change, well, the Yugoslav war in the 90s, if those would even happen, if this nation merged. But oh well, it Tito had several other proposals that he wanted to do, such as having Albania join in, or even Romania join in to create this socialist federative Balkan Federation, or whatever it was supposed to be called. But oh well. The the last but not least nation of this sweet good old video is the East African Federation, which has been proposed since the 60s and is actually still an ongoing movement to create this proposed nation. The East African Federation's official language is Swahili and also English and French. The, the nations that makes it up are South Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, also the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Uganda. This nation, it's it's also has been proposed since the 60s, as I mentioned before. And when it was proposed in the 60s, the nation, all the some of the nations that were supposed to be part of it waited until everyone else had gained independence, so they could all join up together. In the 60s, it didn't work out. It failed, but the modern nation of Tanzania was made out of it from the two nations of Tanganyika and Zanzibar, which joined up together. But the modern nation of which are, well, the attempted East African Federation, that's in our modern day, its capital would be Arusha, which has been used for various diplomatic means in, well, Africa. It's basically Africa's Geneva. Its largest city would be Kinshasa, of course, 17 million people living in there. It would be the 34th richest country in the world. And also, not to mention, it would have an extremely huge population of 302 million people, which would make it the fourth largest country in the world by population wise, behind the United States but above Indonesia. And also, not to mention, the size of it would be the largest country in Africa and the seventh largest country in the world, above India. it could have the potential to be a powerhouse in the continent. But I myself, I personally think South Sudan and Democratic Republic of the Congo were probably not the best candidates to join in as well in this proposed East African nation. But oh well. I wish them the best because the movement that they have right now for it is pretty strong. Almost all these nations here are working together to create this proposed nation. I don't know when that will happen because it has had quite a few delays. All, but once it does happen, we'll see how it goes. But well, this might be the end of the video actually. So comment down below, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and of course ring the bell always. But comment down below any proposed nation I've missed, video ideas, or which one of these were your favorite. I of course could have elaborated more on a few of these, expanded more on my explanations, but you know, I'm just tired, and yeah. But I hope you guys enjoyed